our nation's critical infrastructure. Today, we turned the tables on DarkSide.
Not because of a storm, not because of a shortage. Because a ransom note appeared on the screens of a pipeline company in Georgia, and the company that moves 45% of the fuel supply for the entire eastern United States shut itself down rather than find out what else the attackers could reach. The company paid 75 bitcoins, $4.4 million sent within hours to a group calling itself DarkSide. 1 month later, the Department of Justice announced it had gotten $2.3 million of it back. Not by breaking any encryption, not by arresting anyone. They simply had the password. This is the case of Colonial Pipeline, and the group that built ransomware the way a software company builds a product, with customer support, a leaderboard, and a rule against attacking hospitals. It didn't save them. To understand what hit Colonial Pipeline, it helps to stop picturing a hacker and start picturing a vendor. DarkSide did not attack Colonial Pipeline. DarkSide built the weapon and rented it out. This is called ransomware as a service, and by 2021, it was a mature business model with all the infrastructure a legitimate software company would recognize. DarkSide, the developer, wrote the encryption tool. It maintained a leak site on the dark web to publish stolen data from victims who refused to pay. It ran what researchers described as customer support for victims trying to figure out how to purchase Bitcoin. And it operated an affiliate program. Other criminals, called affiliates, would rent the software, break into a target company's network, deploy the encryption, and split the ransom with DarkSide. Industry reporting put the split at around 75% to the affiliate, 25% to the developer. DarkSide even published something resembling a code of conduct. Affiliates were reportedly instructed not to target hospitals, schools, government agencies, or nonprofits. This was not mercy. It was a business decision. Hospitals and governments draw the kind of law enforcement attention that makes an operation harder to run for profit. Colonial Pipeline was not attacked by DarkSide's core developers. It was attacked by an affiliate, a criminal renting a tool, going after a target big enough to pay. The entry point, according to later investigation, appears to have been a single compromised password for a legacy virtual private network account, one that was not protected by multi-factor authentication and was not believed to still be in use. One password, reused or leaked from somewhere else entirely. That was the entire opening the attackers needed. On the 7th of May, Colonial Pipeline's information technology systems were compromised. The ransom note appeared on employee screens that morning. The pipeline itself, the physical infrastructure moving fuel, was not directly hacked, but Colonial made a decision that would define the following week. It shut down the pipeline anyway, because it could not be certain the attackers hadn't reached the operational systems too, and because the company's billing infrastructure, the systems that track whose fuel is whose, was part of what had been encrypted. You cannot easily run a pipeline, you cannot bill. The pipeline carries refined fuel from Texas to New York, roughly 45% of the East Coast supply of petrol, diesel, and jet fuel. It normally moves about 100 million gallons a day. It was down for 6 days. Panic buying began within 48 hours. Long queues formed at petrol stations across the southeastern United States. Some stations ran out entirely. Airlines adjusted fuel logistics. A state of emergency was declared in several states and briefly at the federal level. This was, by most measures, the most disruptive cyber attack on American infrastructure the public had ever directly experienced. Not because it was the most technically sophisticated, Because for the first time, a ransomware attack reached out of a spreadsheet and into a petrol station queue. Colonial's chief executive later told Congress the decision to pay the ransom was his alone, made within hours, because the company did not yet know the extent of the intrusion and needed to restore operations as quickly as possible. 75 bitcoins went out that day. What happened next is the part of this case that made it different from almost every ransomware attack before it. According to the Department of Justice, once Colonial Pipeline notified the FBI of the cryptocurrency address it had used to send the ransom, investigators began reviewing the Bitcoin block.
For profit is decidedly a 21st century challenge. But the old adage, follow the money, still applies.
It is pseudonymous. Every transaction is visible to anyone. What is hidden is only which real-world identity controls which address. Follow the coins for long enough, across enough transfers, and sometimes the trail leads somewhere the owner didn't expect. The FBI tracked the ransom payment as it moved through a series of transfers and identified a specific address holding approximately
digital currency. We will continue to use all of our tools and all of our resources to increase the cost and the
fully explain. The FBI stated in a sworn affidavit that it possessed the private key to that address. A private key is the cryptographic password that controls a Bitcoin wallet. Without it, the coins are permanently unreachable by anyone, including law enforcement. With it, whoever holds the key holds the funds. The Department of Justice has never disclosed
from using them. This is just the latest disruption that the FBI and DOJ have taken to impose risk and consequences.
Of Justice moved the coins out of DarkSide's wallet and into its own. $2.3 million recovered. DarkSide's own response is, in its way, as revealing as the seizure itself. Days after the Colonial Pipeline attack made international headlines, DarkSide posted a message to its own affiliates, stating that it had lost access to parts of its infrastructure, including its servers and the funds in some of its accounts, and announced it was shutting down. The group framed this as a voluntary exit, citing pressure it said had come from a law enforcement agency, and announced it would introduce moderation to prevent affiliates from targeting infrastructure with social consequences in the future. Security researchers were skeptical this was purely voluntary. Ransomware groups have a long history of shutting down publicly and reopening under a new name with the same core developers and the same code. Within months, a new ransomware operation calling itself Black Matter appeared, using code and negotiation infrastructure that researchers assessed shared significant similarity with DarkSide. No individual has ever been publicly named, charged, or arrested in connection with the Colonial Pipeline attack specifically. The affiliate who carried it out remains unidentified. The rented weapon was used once, spectacularly, and then the people who built it changed their name. Colonial Pipeline paid its ransom within hours because it had no better option. That decision, and the panic it triggered at petrol stations from Florida to Virginia, is what moved ransomware from an information security problem into a national security one. Within weeks, the Department of Justice announced it would investigate ransomware attacks using the same protocols reserved for terrorism. The White House issued an executive order on cybersecurity for federal systems and critical infrastructure. Congress opened hearings. Colonial's chief executive testified that the compromised account had not been protected by multi-factor authentication, a basic safeguard that would very likely have stopped the intrusion at the door. The seizure itself set a precedent the Department of Justice was eager to publicize. Cryptocurrency's public ledger, the feature that was supposed to make it resistant to seizure, had become the thing that made this recovery possible. Every transaction DarkSide's affiliate made to move that ransom was permanently, publicly recorded, and law enforcement had learned to read it. The pipeline was fully operational within a week. The fuel shortage passed. Petrol stations refilled. What didn't pass was the demonstration. A single password, without multi-factor authentication, on an account nobody remembered was still active, had shut down 45% of the East Coast's fuel supply. The lesson was not about sophisticated hackers. It was about a login screen nobody had gotten around to disabling. If you want more of these, subscribe. A new case file every month, built from court records and primary sources. The next one is already in the queue.